Hey guys, I'm Saurav. Welcome to the channel. Today in this video, I'm going to compare the 5x telephoto lens of the iPhone 15 Pro Max with a 120mm lens on a full frame camera. To keep the comparison fair, for most of the shots, we are going to avoid having shallow depth of field. All the images and videos you see in this particular video will be shot handheld to test the optical image stabilization. I'm super excited, so without wasting any time, let's get started. One thing I really appreciate is the time it takes to switch from the wide-angle lens to the telephoto lens. It's very quick, unlike some of the other smartphones. The 15 Pro Max comes with the 5x lens, which is equivalent to 120mm, whereas the 15 Pro comes with a 3x lens, which is equivalent to 77mm. You will immediately notice a difference when you start using the 5x for the first time if you're used to the usual 3x.
First observation, both the images look great. The iPhone image looks sharper. If I zoom here, you can see the texture more clearly on the iPhone image. Now, that doesn't mean the iPhone is sharper and is capturing more detail. That is not possible for a smaller sensor. This is digital sharpening added in post. Personally, I feel the sharpening is way too much. It doesn't look quite natural, and I prefer the natural look. But apart from that, the results are looking pretty good, and that's very impressive considering the size of the iPhone. In terms of exposure, the iPhone likes to keep the details both in highlights and shadows, giving a sort of HDR look. Whereas in camera, it's just a single exposure and the shadow region appears darker as it does in real life. Which one's better? Again, that's a personal preference. If you're shooting in RAW, you can easily make one look like the other. Since a full frame camera has a larger sensor, you can recover more details in shadows without introducing much noise, whereas in the iPhones, you will see a bit more noise in the shadow regions. In terms of colors, I have had a mixed experience. I was using auto white balance on both the devices, and for most of the time, the iPhone tends to shoot warmer colors. If I'm shooting in RAW and I match the colors, it will be difficult to differentiate between these two images unless and until I zoom in. If you don't prefer the warmer colors and you don't want to spend time editing the RAW files, you can use the photographic styles and use the cool preset. The best thing about it is you can customize the warmth value according to your taste.
A lot of you people had a doubt whether the 5x lens supports portrait mode. The answer is yes. In portrait mode, you have 1x, 2x and 5x. Personally, if you ask me, I like the compression of the 3x lens, which is around 80mm. Right now, I'm shooting with a 85mm lens. 120mm is a bit too much, but again, that's a personal preference.
Comparing the shots side by side, it's easier for me to differentiate between the two images. Portrait mode is getting better with each generation. The edge detection is slightly better than before. The foreground here is also out of focus as it should be. You definitely have more details in the image that is captured by the camera. If you're looking for cinematic mode, unfortunately the 5x lens does not support cinematic mode.
Before we move to the low light test, a small request. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we are very close to 1 million. A sub would be great. Low light is where this lens really surprised me. I mean, it's a 2.8 lens, and in terms of smartphone cameras, it's not ideal. But the iPhone is not afraid to use slower shutter speeds to compensate for it. When you're using slower shutter speeds, you need a good stabilization system. And optical image stabilization works really well in low light. Combine that with the night mode and the noise reduction that happens in post after you take the shot, the results are pretty impressive.
It was getting pretty dark and I had to shoot at ISO 16000 on my camera to maintain a fast enough shutter speed to avoid any camera shake. Look at the iPhone result. This was shot handheld using the night mode and it looks very good for such a small sensor. Colors are vibrant, you still have that great dynamic range in highlights and shadows. There is a lot of noise reduction happening which can make some details less clear. However, the sharpening applied to the images helps bring back most of those details without making the images overly sharp like before. If you're shooting straight into light sources, you will see a bit of flare. Apple says that it is using some kind of lens coating to deal with it, but the issue has not disappeared completely.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with how the results turned out. To be honest, it exceeded my expectations. Yes, the sharpening could be a little bit less obvious according to my taste, but that's how the phones go about the post-processing. Considering all the lenses, on one end you have the ultra wide at 13mm, on the other end you have the 5x at 120mm. Now you're getting a lot of focal range. I'm definitely going to use the telephoto lens more often. That's it from this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any more questions regarding the iPhone 15 Pro cameras, drop them down in the comments below. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.